23 British diplomats are to be expelled from Russia in retaliation to an identical move by the UK over the poisoning of a former double agent in Britain. The British ambassador to Russia was told the news when he was summoned to the Foreign Ministry. Nadira Tudor sums up what we know.
Tensions have been escalating, and here we are now. 23 British diplomats are going to be expelled. They've got a week. They've been given a week to leave. This was told to the UK ambassador who was summoned to the Russian Foreign Ministry this morning. The Russian Foreign Ministry has also said that further measures in retaliation to this growing diplomatic dispute over the nerve agent attack on the former spy in Britain will be taken if Britain takes any more unfriendly moves towards Russia.
OK, they've left that part open then.
Yeah, they have. Right. So, you know, we have been seeing the rhetoric. Yesterday we saw Sergei Lavrov speak quite harshly and Moscow retaliating to that as well. What we also have is Russia's ordering that the consulate, just to explain this, there's a consulate in St. Petersburg, and they asked or requested an expansion. That has now been refused. Okay. And if we look at the background here, you know, Russia has taken a number of steps when the Skripals were poisoned to try and cooperate with the British authorities. They requested samples of the nerve agent. Britain refused to provide them. Russia also said it was willing to help with the investigation. They hadn't heard back from that, so they wanted to cooperate then. And recently, Moscow just launched their own criminal investigation. We don't know when that's going to happen, how that's going to happen, if it's going to happen at all, because, of course, they will need that cooperation from the Brits. That's the situation as it stands right now.
On Friday, the British Foreign Secretary upped the ante, saying it was overwhelmingly likely that the poisoning was directed by President Putin himself. The Kremlin described the comment as, quote, unforgivable behavior for a diplomat. Russia's envoy to the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons says the UK's refusal to work together with Moscow is suspicious.
Based on statements by the head of the British delegation, they regard our proposal on bilateral consultations as an attempt to procrastinate, and they urged everybody not to listen to these lies, as they say. They say Russia's intention is to avoid being held accountable, but I see it differently. My guess is, actually, our British friends and partners are just afraid. They are afraid that our experts may analyze those samples, and they may see some dirty tricks there or something. Our British partners don't want this to happen. If they don't produce any evidence, we will regard that as they have nothing to show, and they will be held accountable for slander. We offered other options if they don't want to talk to us directly. We can go through the Executive Council. We can set up a group of technical experts led by the Director General. And if they are not happy with that, they can call a special session. But the British are not happy with any of these options. They can call a meeting of the highest body, of the OPCW, and we can address the issue there. So they have a number of different options. For sure, they will not be able to tell where this substance came from. This will require dialogue between Russia and the UK, direct or indirect. There are many ways to go about it. When the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 90s, intelligence services took from Russia a group of specialists and their documents, including Vil Mirzayanov, and they continued their work with Soviet knowledge, and we even know in which countries the work continued. Some of this work was successful, and we can find the results openly on NATO and EU websites.
Well, even though the British investigation into the poisoning is still ongoing, UK officials were fast to turn their words into action, as Jacqueline Vuga reports.
Issue threats, impose sanctions, and cancel your plans to attend the World Cup now. There's no time to explain. The stuff memes are made of. Literally. Concrete proof, a full and transparent investigation, no time for that. The European Council isn't hanging around. Donald Tusk is calling everyone in to discuss what nobody's certain about.
I'm ready to put this issue on the agenda of next week's EU summit.
Charging forward on the most likely inspired by Moscow front. No time to be sure. Even Australia is backing Theresa May's compelling case against Russia. Innocent until it gets interesting.
Australia stands in solidarity and supports the United Kingdom.
And the UK Defence Secretary isn't overly keen on hearing out the defence.
Frankly, Russia should go away, it should shut up.
Just after that, Gavin Williamson announced £48 million will be invested in a new chemical weapons defence centre. Why? Because Russia, of course. The Defence Secretary is also going to deliver with anthrax vaccines for troops. What does that have to do with the Skripal poisoning? No time to explain. And it took France no time at all to change its mind on action. Initially skeptical and calling it too soon to blame the Kremlin, Paris is set to agree on and impose new sanctions on Russia.
Et je veux ici avoir évidemment un mot de solidarité pour nos amis britanniques.
So the plan is solidarity with the UK, which apparently includes deliberately avoiding a Russian stand at the Paris Book Fair. What we are seeing is a whole lot of act first and ask later. And frankly, we should take more time to find the answers.